Hey Moth, do you like video games?
Video games? Yeah, they're pretty good.
Do you enjoy remakes and remasters of beloved gaming classics from your past?
Yeah, I suppose I do if they're done well.
Then allow me to make you an offer you can't refuse.
Ooh, exciting. Go on then.
How would you like to buy the Mafia Definitive Edition Trilogy, containing one excellent remake and two disappointing remasters, where virtually no notable changes have been made since the originals, all for the bargain price of $49.99.
Oh, well, that sounds like an absolute bag of shit, mate. I categorically refuse your piss-poor offer.
That was supposed to be an offer you can't refuse. Who am I kidding? No one would actually pay that much for a trilogy containing two shoddy remasters. My bad.
Actually, I refuse because I've already bought it.
So we got ourselves a wise guy here. Do you not regret your purchase?
Well, how about you stick around for the review and find out, Don, which is short for dong. You big fat stupid flailing dong.
Sup peeps! In this video we're going to be reviewing Hangar 13 and 2K's Mafia Definitive Edition, including the brand new full remake of the original 2002 Mafia game, as well as the 2020 remasters of Mafia 2 and Mafia 3. So sit back, relax and enjoy.
Or you'll be swimming with the fishes in no time.
Now let's get started with our review for the first Mafia in this trilogy, Mafia Definitive Edition. First off, this is a complete overhaul, a full remake of the original 2002 Mafia with swanky new graphics redesigned from the ground up, but even more noticeably, new gameplay elements and mechanics, new assets, new motion capture animations, a new lighting engine and most impressively, a re-recorded rendition of the original soundtrack, which 2K have absolutely nailed.
Set in the fictional city of Lost Haven, Illinois, based on 1930s Chicago, we take the reins of protagonist Tommy Angelo, whose story starts off being your average Joe taxi driver before becoming entangled in the Mafia web when two members of the Salieri family, Sam and Paulie, need Tommy's help to escape an ambush staged by the Morello family. After successfully evading the ambush, Tommy is introduced to Don Enion Salieri, and it is here where Tommy's life takes a drastic turn as he entered the heated intensity of the Mafia world.
Let's have a look at some of the biggest differences between this remake and the original. First up, the core of the gameplay is still shooting and driving. The differences are clearly in the fine-tuning of these mechanics, introducing a cover shooting system which feels very similar to Mafia 3. It's solid and feels tight with an impressively realistic sway and recoil to each weapon, but nothing groundbreaking. Tommy has a few more limitations in what he can carry too. Gone are the days where he could carry a Tommy gun in his hands, 3 pistols in his jacket pockets and a shotgun down his pants which he could pass off as his massive mobster member. Tommy is restricted to a primary weapon, a sidearm, 2 throwables and a melee weapon, all of which are accessed from a weapon wheel, a feature that is ubiquitous nowadays in third-person shooters of this type.
The driving is drastically different. Each car has a much wider range of feedback to the player compared to the original. Tighter cornering from the more nimble cars that are quicker off the mark, and heavy sluggish movements when driving larger vehicles as you would expect. Also, there are motorbikes! Who doesn't enjoy the freedom of hopping on a bike in any open world city? The driving is fantastic, and thankfully they've kept the laws of the road in the game that won over so many fans in the original. I think they've struck a nice balance by not making the game boring travelling at 30 miles per hour everywhere, but also realistic enough that the police actually do show interest in you licking it past them at 95 miles per hour in a school zone. I remember being in school when the original game first came out and being amazed with my mates that there's actually a game where you can get pulled over for speeding. That level of immersion is honoured and appreciated in this remake. At least compared to real life, where getting pulled over for the same crime can result in doing a mind-numbing speed awareness course and a few hours of community service alongside the local crack whores, grave diggers and flash-happy playground nudists of this world. The 1930s was so much nicer than today.
These finer details can be made more or less severe depending on the player's choice of difficulty, with your typical easy, medium and hard modes available. There's also the classic mode for lovers of the original where police respond to more crimes, enemies hit harder, there are fewer map indicators, and reloading with ammo left in the clip loses that ammo. Tommy has way more animations too, which is to be expected for a remake, but it's executed so well. I could feel the similarities to Mafia 3, and that's obviously the base template that 2K and Hangar 13 have worked from here. However, the stealth elements, albeit minimal, feel a little tighter. There's also a little more verticality. Tommy doesn't exactly traverse the city with the free-running acrobatics of Ezio, but he's not shy of climbing a few strategically placed boxes to get onto that first floor roof either.
They've also added a garage, so gone are the difficulties of lining up all your stolen vehicles outside of Salieri's. Now you can store and customise them all within your own garage. The customisation has a fantastically wide variety of options too, from colour changes both on the exterior and interior, as well as accessories and tuning your car's overall performance.
There are a few negative differences worth mentioning. One thing I noticed, which can be expected in today's it's too difficult, and if it's too difficult then it's not worth doing world, is the difference in navigating the city of Lost Haven. In the original, I remember having to engage my brain and recognise landmarks to navigate through the world, without being guided by some brightly coloured icon saying, "Hey, this way, numbnuts!" Now, I can't be accused of being a prehistoric gamer either, because Ubisoft showed us in Assassin's Creed Odyssey that it is possible to introduce navigation mechanics that force the player to actually read something and use their brains, and guess what? The game still works. Thankfully, prior to release, 2K have wisely included the classic mode I've previously mentioned, so this can't even be considered a negative because they've fixed it prior to release.
Another little gripe I've got is the interactivity of the world. It's a small gripe, but one thing I enjoy doing in open world games is interacting with the citizens of that world and reacting to that interaction. Or the ability to flush the toilet, which is essential when your diet is 95% pasta. These little interactions have been left out in the remake, so a small slice of immersion is missing as a result.
I'm so happy to say that there are very few negatives, and the ones that do exist are so small. So let's move on. The visuals. Mooching around the city of Lost Haven, the first thing that struck me was the lighting. It's phenomenal, an area which has been severely lacking in some of 2K's previous work, but fedoras off to them here.
There's also been some slight tweaks and additions to the plot, such as increased dialogue and screen time for certain characters, like Tommy's saucy side piece Sarah, whose character is given much more depth and agency within the story. Hangar 13 have also opted to bulk up certain missions, whilst adamantly maintaining that the core of each mission will remain the same. They've added some memorable moments and other content within certain missions. I must stress that the story at its core is the same, and after all, that's what won over so many fans in the original in the first place. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, unless you're 100% certain you can improve on it, of course, and I think they managed to do that here.
One last thing to mention with regards to the storytelling element of the game is the cast of the original is no more. All main characters have been recast, and that includes Tommy, previously played by Michael Savino, is now played by Andrew Bongiorno. I'm sure there's fanboys of the original that would be disappointed by this, but really, how is it viable to maintain a full cast roster for an 18-year-old game? It would have been like Christopher Nolan casting Adam West in the Dark Knight trilogy and watching Bane body slam his haggard old spine into the floor. Not only that, Bongiorno, amongst others in the cast, particularly Jeremy Luke, who plays Paulie, have done an amazing job in both voice acting and their motion capture performances.
The side missions feel a little bit more considered, and I'm basing that on the fact that 2K and Hangar 13 really dropped the ball with this in Mafia 3. They've listened to the critics here, adding a little interest and depth to each side mission. Also, collectibles, if that's your thing. You've got magazines and cigarette cards to hunt down.
Last but certainly not least is the sound design in the game. It's incredible, really impressive. I love the remastered soundtrack, the gritty rumbling engine noises, the general ambience of Lost Haven, from open space exploration in the countryside to busy life-packed inner city areas. Superbly done. Also, they've added a new radio station. Fuck yeah!
You still with us? Shit, really? Oh well, we better get on with Mafia 2 then.
Originally released in 2010, Mafia 2 has received a new lick of paint by developer Hangar 13. The story centres on protagonist Vito Scaletta, a Sicilian immigrant who joins the army in the Second World War to avoid a prison sentence after committing some serious crimes against food.
You're supposed to stir the pasta through the ragu sauce, not just dump the sauce on top, you fucking douchebag!
Vito bears a not so subtle resemblance to a young Mr. Pacino. No, not that one. More Michael Corleone, obviously, you schmuck.
Battling his way through the war-set prologue of the game, Vito is captured by the Italian military during Operation Husky, but just before they blow him and his comrades into chunks of bologna meat, they are ordered to surrender to the Allies by a local Mafia boss. It is here that Vito gets his first hard-on from witnessing the power and influence that organised crime can achieve.
After Vito returns from the war, the rest of the game takes place in the fictional city of Empire Bay, which borrows heavily from the urban architecture you'd commonly associate with cities like New York, Chicago and Detroit in the 50s. He meets up with his childhood friend Joe, who looks like he was designed from the same generic Italian-American facial template as Vito, but just made a little bit fatter. It's like they were both originally triplets, but Joe got hungry and ate the other sibling. Sort it out, Hangar 13, it's just lazy and a little bit racist if I'm honest. Vito goes on to learn that his deceased father has an outstanding debt to the mob, and it's his attempts to pay off that debt that lead to his descent into the world of the Mafia.
Although Mafia 2 is considered to be an open world game, it's still fairly linear compared to today's standards. The graphics are actually a huge step up from the original 2010 version, especially the lighting effects, but where the game is basically broken, and I mean borderline unplayable, is the frame rate. Forget about it. We played the game on PS4 Pro where reports say this is particularly poor. This is most notable during the driving sequences where the frame rate plummets when you hit top speed, and subsequently hit a wall. Imagine being behind the wheel and having an epileptic fit whilst Nicki Minaj aggressively twerks right in your face. That's what it's like. Okay, well, the latter part might not be that terrible, but when you're trying to control a vehicle, it's massively distracting.
And even playing it again in June this year, the audio is still a complete mess. There's just no consistency in the mixing, so some parts are really loud juxtaposed with others that are just really quiet. If anyone plays the game with headphones, you'll notice that in some scenes the dialogue can only be heard in the left ear, which had me thinking my headphones were broken. So I went out and bought 47 new pairs of headphones to try and solve the problem until I was completely broke and had to sell my own ears to pay off the credit card debt like a complete prick, so I can't even hear the difference now anyway.
Eh?
You what? What you saying?
The soundtrack features some classic 50s tunes from legendary crooners like Chuck Berry, Bing Crosby and Dean Martin, which really helps with the immersion into the game's narrative. Having said that, I was kinda hoping that the remaster would include an anachronistic soundtrack option with songs by 3-6 Mafia, Mobb Deep and Lisa Mafia, but no. Shame. Real shame.
The combat hasn't really changed at all from the original. The gunplay is still as loose as the guests at a swingers dinner party, although it does do the job as a basic cover system shooter. When it comes to the unarmed combat, Vito gives absolutely no shits. Doesn't break a sweat, doesn't even change his expression when having his face smashed in. Look at him here, he's as cool under pressure as the snow he's magically not slipping on.
Despite some glaring flaws that we had hoped would have been ironed out in the remaster, Mafia 2 is ultimately saved by the strength of its story. Sure, even remastered, the tweaks the developers have made are staggeringly minor for what we would have hoped for from a definitive edition of the game, but the narrative and the characters made sure that we stuck around again for the duration.
Absolutely. Even though most of the missions are basically just getting from A to B, there are some buying options, outfit choices and a small amount of vehicle customization, which, bearing in mind the game was originally released in 2010, that's quite a lot of good shit to do. The game could have done with some variety to bulk it out in the form of mini-games or side quests. Something like the Urinal Sniffer Chronicles, where Vito breaks into public bathrooms to inhale the urinals after he develops an addiction to the smell of cheap bleach. If he doesn't get his fix, he'll quit the world of organised crime mid-game and become a janitor.
I'm a janitor now.
$2K. You can have that idea for free for your next AAA game. You're welcome, you
So to summarise, all the things that made the original Mafia 2 a decent game back in 2010 are the only things that are noteworthy in the remaster. The new version offers very little in terms of freshness or innovation, except for an aesthetic touch-up. The whole thing was very clearly rushed so it could be included in the definitive edition trilogy, just to earn them a little bit of extra dollar.
Didn't think I was gonna find out? Huh? Is that what you thought? You guys are fucking stupid.
I have a gambling problem.
You have a gambling problem? Shut the fuck up! Shut the fuck up! Hey, you want the money? Is that what you want? You want money, you fucking idiots? Here, take the money. Here, go ahead, take the fucking money. You fucking idiots. Take it. Take the fucking money. Here, take it. Is that what you want? Take the fucking money. Come here, you fucking cocksucker.
That kind of behavior will get you whacked, you thieving rat bastards.
Okay, pipe down, Al Capone. Moving on to the remaster of Mafia 3. Originally released in 2016, this time our protagonist is Vietnam War vet Lincoln Clay, who, just like Vito in Mafia 2, returns to his hometown after the war to reconnect with his friends and family. The game is set in the fictional city of New Bordeaux, a blatant but beautiful reimagining of New Orleans. Woo! Mardi Gras, baby! Yeah! The story picks up as he reunites with his surrogate father and black mob head honcho Sammy Robinson, his adopted brother Ellis, and local priest Morgan Freeman.
Lincoln learns that Sammy is in debt to a fierce local mob boss called Sal Marcano. In an attempt to pay off the debt, Lincoln agrees to help Sal pull off a heist at the Federal Reserve, and although the job is a success, he's betrayed by the mob boss who kills both Ellis and Sammy, leaving Lincoln for dead in the process. This becomes the catalyst for Lincoln's spree of vengeance that underpins the story of the game.
The basic object of the game is for you to take down each district in the city one by damaging rackets owned by that district's boss, eventually luring him out. This is engaging at first, but feels a little rinse and repeat after a while. You gradually build your own empire, hiring underbosses as you progress, who provide Lincoln with perks such as a hit squad or the ability to summon a mobile gunsmith who deals weapons and Cajun catfish gumbo out of the back of a van. Can't wait for that to give me diarrhea later.
In terms of the graphics, there is barely any noticeable differences to the original. One of the few minor tweaks is the lighting effects when the characters catches the glare of the sun, which would previously melt the retinas of players. Bipolar time and weather cycles, however, are still a shambles. Patches of spontaneous rain where the world will flash grey for 5 seconds and then thrust back to clear blue skies instantly. And when the day farts straight into night, it's as if Harold the Magic Twat is New Bordeaux's local meteorologist.
The gameplay mechanics are very similar to Mafia 2, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but I expected a bit more evolution from 2010 to 2016. One thing that has been vamped up though is the hyperbolic level of violence at the player's disposal.
Hey, how you doing?
We all know New Orleans has a rich history involving voodoo, and this is very much included in the game, or at least how I chose to play it. Instead of simply pulling pins out of grenades, the player can stick pins in a voodoo doll at the enemy's expense, and by that I mean simply burying a hunting knife deep into a bad guy's neck and stomping him face first into the concrete. You can also cast spells that turn people's water bottles into flaming sambucas. Eat your f***ing heart out, Jesus.
Hang on, it's not all that violent. What about that side quest where you help all those elderly people up off the street who have fallen over?
That's in reverse, you silly twat. Look. Oh, OMG! WTF? OAP GBH? STFU, you
An area where the game excels in is the vibrancy of New Bordeaux. The city feels authentic and lived in through the NPC interactions and the player's ability to explore building interiors to loot ammo, weapons, tools and collectibles. The soundtrack also perfectly encapsulates the rock and roll era of the late 60s, and similar to Mafia 2, adds to the overall immersion of the verse.
This might be the weakest game in the trilogy in terms of story and gameplay innovation for the time it was released, but the cameos from older characters in the series, such as Vito, provided a welcomed addition to the narrative. And also how the game addresses the racial inequality that was rife in those regions of the US at the time, make it a pertinent and necessary entry to the series.
So what's our overall rating for this definitive edition of the Mafia trilogy? I've been Les.
And I've been Moz. Please rub your grubby mitts over the bell and icon to be informed of all our future uploads. If you enjoyed the video, give us a like and don't forget to subscribe for more dangerously unhelpful and pointlessly outlandish gaming insights. Word up!